going on, everybody? Welcome to PFF's live NFL preview show here at the beautiful Western and Southern studios. So glad that you guys are here hanging out with us. Trevor Sikkema, Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, Eric Eager. Fellas, perfect time for the show. Halftime of the Jets-Falcons game. Early thoughts on Zach Wilson, Eric? The man who has the most on the line for Zach Wilson to be good.
Yeah, just part of the journey, guys. Just part of the journey.
It's the experience.
It's just the part of the journey.
I just want everybody to know that was verbatim what he said when Zach Wilson pegged the back of his offensive lineman on that screen.
Should have been standing there.
It's just, right, it's all part of the
learning experience for him.
Guys, we're
learning.
We're obviously going to have a lot of fun on this show. We're going to be previewing all of the big games here on Sunday and on Monday night as well, giving you the major storylines, the major matchups. We're going to be updating you on the injuries as we know them, as the final injury reports come out, and then, of course, give you guys the best betting angles as well. A new element of this show that I'm very, very excited about, we have Kendall Valenzuela here with us, who is over on the bar area of the set. She is going to be giving us all sorts of updates when it comes to the YouTube comments, the questions, the replies for all the topics, so you guys can get into the show. So Kendall, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'm excited. It should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I know that the YouTube comments always get popping whenever we start to give our Sunday opinions.
It's definitely a better way of spending airtime than discussing the table from last week. So I'm on board with this.
Right, this is very true. She's also going to be looking at all the tweets as you guys reply, because the show is obviously live on Twitter. I know that that's how you guys are watching that as well. As we get into this slate of games, there's a lot of movement that happened this week. A couple of big trade moves, some releases, Jalen Smith on the move, Stephon Gilmore on the move, and then obviously we have big-time injuries like Russell Wilson, George Kittle. Those guys are going out, wondering what the question marks are there. I want to start with Jalen Smith. Let's start with Jalen Smith, okay? So Jalen, great story coming out of Notre Dame, gets drafted at the top of the second round by the Dallas Cowboys, signs the big contract, and then here he is on the Green Bay Packers somehow. And it's almost like a how did we get here kind of a thing, because high draft pick, sign the big contract, all of a sudden it's out. Sam, what the heck happened with Jalen Smith?
Well, we got here because Jalen Smith hasn't been a very good football player in the NFL for most of the time. That 2018 season was pretty good. And actually, when you go back and kind of look at the tape and try and figure out, like, where did that guy go? Because he played well in the NFL. They gave him the big contract. Okay, there's definitely part of like, hey, let's reward getting that right.
We're here partially because guys like Jerry Jones like to reward themselves for stepping out on a limb and making a pick that not that many people, like, right?
But he did at least get those bad contracts. He did at least give them a season where to buy into that, right? To reward themselves and everybody else. And when you go back, and that was post-injury, right? So that was like the culmination of the comeback. So it's not like that guy disappeared because of the injury. But when you go back and look at the tape, you kind of see him playing largely the same. He still struggled in the same areas, but there was no hesitation back then. Like, he just went for it, attacked things way more, and because of that, you end up making more plays, even if you're also still screwing up to the same frequency. So somewhere between then and now, that kind of decisiveness and that like willingness to just go and attack the play and launch yourself at it, whatever it is, it went somewhere and it hasn't come back.
Is it concerning for the state of the linebacker position in the NFL that no one wanted to trade for him? Because he's legitimately a starting caliber linebacker in the NFL. We had Kenneth Murray injured this week. We've had like a Patrick Queen not live up to expectations yet. The Kansas City Chiefs linebackers couldn't cover Hugh or Trevor. So like the issue I think is like what is he that far gone, or has the league wised up? Because one of the issues that happened that year in 18 was they had 2 of the top 6 linebackers in PFF WAR. And like, why do these teams that sign both linebackers or make an effort to sort of like put a ton of draft capital into both of those positions in the nickel almost always seem to regret it, because it's a position where you can kind of get by, and it's not the running back of the defense, because I do think linebackers matter, but it's close.
It feels though that I think linebackers matter, but it's only the really good ones, and the difference between like the number 10 linebacker and the number 50 linebacker seems to be fairly inconsequential.
I just didn't get the timing with this, because I think if you ask Cowboys fans over the years, they're well aware that we haven't seen the guy from 2018 here in quite some time.
Right.
But why do this after week 4? Why not do this before the season started or whatever? So it played out the way it did. I just can't help but wonder if there's something we don't know, disagreement in the locker room, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and the timing is very interesting. And I learned after it kind of came out that, okay, well, if he gets injured, then they owe him all of his money. Next year it triggers, he gets fully guaranteed. So you kind of maybe try to save a little bit of futures money, play your best bet there. But still, the Cowboys are good. Like they're clearly going to win the division.
Yeah,
so.
And that was all true before the season as well.
Right.
There's no new information other than, hey, 4 weeks in, he's still.
Well,
not
the new
very
information is that Micah Parsons is a really good football player. And there might have been some uncertainty about that going into the season.
But they like playing him at edge, right? So I don't know. There's just all these things that go into it. Another movement that happened when you say, okay, nobody traded for Jalen Smith. We kind of had the opposite happen this week with Stephon Gilmore because it was, the Patriots are going to release him. And you could tell that the Patriots put that news out there so that somebody out there would probably give them literally anything. So instead of just releasing him, they get something. They don't get much, but they do get a 6th round 2023
Well, they do
draft
get a
pick
lot.
from
They get the
Panthers.
cap space back, and obviously that doesn't matter within the season other than being able to make other moves that you can use cap space with, and also makes your owner happy that he doesn't have to pay that money anymore.
This is
but
true.
like the fact that he went for a 6th round pick is the number one reason why when you look at trades in the NFL, you're often trading the contract, right? Akella Witherspoon went for a 5th, right? Like, and we wouldn't say that he's better than Stephon Gilmore in any stretch of the imagination, but Stephon Gilmore comes with that price tag. And good for Carolina. This is why you take care of the cap. This is why the cap matters, because when a situation like this arises and you're a lot better than you thought you were and you have injuries, J.C. Horn at the position, you can go out and not only get a C.J. Henderson, but you can also get a Stephon Gilmore to sort of double up at the position.
And now all of a sudden, you look at Carolina's cornerback room. Dante Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Horn, when these guys are obviously healthy, C.J. Henderson, like, Carolina's going all in. I feel like if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you've got to be at least excited about how willing their general manager, Scott Fitterer, is to go and build the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the move is definitely reflective of the fact that Carolina are better than they thought they were going to be, or at least think that they're better now than maybe other people do. But we probably need to tap the brakes a little bit on just how good Stephon Gilmore is. Like, when people are bringing up the idea that he was a defensive player of the year, I mean, it's obviously factually true. He was. That being said, I think there's a pretty good chance he isn't that guy anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Last year, his worst season in terms of coverage grade since either his rookie year or his second year. And he's kind of old at this point, right? He's a cornerback on the wrong side of 30, coming off a bad year, coming off an injury that he's struggling to clear. The chances are this is not the same guy that he once was, particularly if you're going to play a lot of man coverage where if you lose a step, you lose it pretty quickly and you fall right off a cliff.
Yeah, and I'm not. I hear what you're saying, and
I do think it's important that you bring in a guy like him who A, gives you that flexibility because he's almost certainly better than C.J. Henderson, and B, like, that's a great guy to have in the room to bring on a guy like C.J. Henderson and J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson.
Yeah, they have some talent. Jeremy Chin, they have some legit talent in that secondary, and if you're going to compete in an NFC South that has Ridley, Pitts, has all the receivers the Bucs can throw your way.
Right.
Even New Orleans with Michael Thomas for as long as that lasts, like, it's a good maneuver for them.
And he's one of 4 corners who's won Defensive Player of the Year since 1990, right? And I mean, like, that means something when it comes to a young cornerback room, right?
Sure.
Well, and I would say, too, like, his letdown, quote-unquote letdown in 2020, when you're being asked to shadow DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, and not getting much help doing it, I'm going to be a little, more thoughtful in my critiques of them afterwards.
That's fair.
It takes a special cornerback to get that responsibility in the first place. Doesn't perform quite as well as you want. Just keep in mind that's a hell of a good player on the other side of the ball as well.
I want to get into some of those injuries that we talked about at the top of the show because they are shaping a lot of what's going on, specifically in the NFC. First one, I want to get to David Montgomery because Montgomery, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on with Chicago right now. Everybody's talking about Justin Fields as they should, but they were leaning on Montgomery heavy. This was their guy. And Ian, I'll go to you because you know the running back situation is better than anybody in the NFL when it comes to a fantasy angle. And so what happens now with David Montgomery out?
So with Montgomery out, he was actually, this time last week, my favorite buy low running back in fantasy football. Got those 2 touchdowns and decided to leave for 5 weeks. But the reason for that was because we had seen him get that pass down work back that made him a top 5 running back down the stretch of 2020. So with Damian, like, we know he can catch the ball. I mean, the amount of wheel routes that he caught in that Andy Reid offense over the years, absolutely bonkers. So Tariq Cohen is out until at least week 7. Khalil Herbert, rookie, he's done some good things on kick return, not necessarily expecting a huge role. And now we're looking at an 80% snap roll in an offense that likes to feed their running back. So for me, Damian Williams this week, I was my RB22 in Fantasyland. That could go up 10 spots next week if we are seeing him truly featured as the guy.
See, I think that having faith in Williams is fine because he's capable, like you said, but you mentioned how much Chicago likes to lean on the running game. How much does this affect Justin Fields, like what's going to happen with him and how worried I'll say you guys might be when it comes to what Fields is going to do over the next couple of weeks.
I mean, I will say that I think Montgomery was doing a really good job of outperforming the blocking in front of him. Yeah. Like all the problems that Justin Fields been dealing with in terms of that terrible offensive line, so was Montgomery all the way through the season, and he was still having
incredible who was reminding me of that year was 2016 Jay Ajayi. It was like, terrible offensive line, but you're somehow like getting yardage and
just
breaking tackles and like beasting everybody.
Right, and it's usually not like a long-term sustainable thing, but for a while it's happening. It's incredible and a really impressive performance from him. So, you go up against the Raiders this week, and we'll get to that later, but Fields might have some trouble in terms of pressure, but they might not be getting the yardage that they were getting before on the ground either, and that's going to have an impact.
And do you think it makes Nagy more efficient, or like Bill Lazor more efficient on early downs? Because like we saw like last year when they had their quarterback issues, it was like run on first down, run on second down. Maybe now he doesn't have that faith in Damian Williams, which is probably good. Like it probably steers them in the right direction to be more efficient on early downs.
I was just going to move on to say Kittle's on IR now 3 weeks, so he's going to miss 3 weeks. And obviously, there's a crucial for the Niners. They're not really in a situation where the division is kind of like theirs for the taking, or they can take 3 weeks off, if you will. Like this team's got to win football games. So where do the touches go? Where do the targets go? I mean, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Like, where are we going with the football here with Kittle out?
Already a fairly run-first offense as it is. So Deebo, Ayuk, you'd like to think so because these are the receivers that are left, but we got to get Trent Sherfield some snaps. And Mohamed Sanu, whatever's left of him, he needs to get some targets as well. So the biggest takeaway that we've seen now through 4 weeks, like no longer this insignificant sample size, it's that Deebo Samuel is the outright number one in San Francisco. Like going into this year, we were all kind of expecting more of a three-way split between him, Ayuk, and Kittle at the top of that depth chart. Again, we need to react to the new information we have, and it's that Deebo Samuel is the engine of this passing game. So I'm not so sure that any of these other pass game options are going to be worthwhile. And even in the running back room, we got one injury after another. At least at this point, we can trust Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, Ross Dwelly, a really low total for receiving yardage prop today. We'll talk about that when we get to that game. 70 targets between Samuel and Kittle, the majority of that offense there, it has really not been Brandon Ayuk. Weirdly, there were a number of games where Ayuk had more targets in that one game than he's had through 4 weeks this year. So
it was starting to go his way, then he just took it right.
Yeah, it was strange. So this will be an interesting one. There is some opportunity here. The Dwelly situation is kind of interesting because the linebacker situation, as much as they poured resources into it, it is still the tight end funnel in Arizona.
I would just say if people need a tight end, like Ross Dwelly's fine, but again, I'm not sure they're going to throw the ball more than 15, 20 times. Go get Ricky Seals-Jones. He'll for sure be available, and he'll play every single snap with Logan Thomas out for Washington.
There we go.
Ricky Seals-Jones.
Staying in the division, we got to talk about Russell Wilson because this isn't just big for the NFC West. It's not just big for the Seahawks. I mean, this is big picture stuff because this is one of the best players, most impactful players in the NFL. Russell Wilson doesn't often miss time, but here he's going to miss, I think, timetables anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, which that's a big gap. It's not like 4 to 5. I mean, there's a big difference between missing 4 games and missing 8 games. And so, Sam, what do you think about the Seahawks now with their situation?
Have you done your research on mallet finger?
I mean, I know more about it now than I ever have.
Been diving into the books, the research manuals, you know what we're dealing with here?
We all become Twitter doctors when any major player goes out. So
look, huge. I mean, Russell Wilson hasn't missed time, but you can't legislate for Aaron Donald's face being where you're about to throw the football, and that's multiple quarterbacks he's done that to now, right? Drew Brees, didn't he catch a hand on Aaron Donald's helmet? Like that's a little ancillary benefit of being always pressuring the quarterback.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
your head is going to be where other defenders aren't a lot of the time. So all of a sudden the Seahawks, who lean on their quarterback, lean on Russell Wilson more than anybody else in the NFL, they don't have him to lean on. And how do you react to that? Do you do the same thing with Geno Smith, or do you try and adjust?
I think if you're a Seahawks fan, and it's already like the funnest group of Twitter fans, fun may be the wrong word, but like the most maybe active group, if the Seahawks start running like efficient offense with Geno Smith, they start running more play action, they start moving the pocket around, they start throwing up more on early downs, and Geno has some success, I don't think it's going to be enjoyed by Seahawks Twitter because like Wilson has been like basically playing with like one hand tied behind his back for the last like 4 or 5 years, and he's carried this team to playoffs every year but one. And if it takes losing him to actually like run efficient offense, it's not going to be fun for Seattle fans.
I just wanted to point out back in 2017 when Eli Manning got benched and he ended his active consecutive game started streak. He was replaced by Geno Smith. Active leader right now, it's Russell Wilson being replaced by Geno Smith.
That's one of the most unbreakable numbers in sports. Brett Favre's consecutive starts.
Oh, it's insane.
Nobody else has got within like 5 seasons of it.
Yeah.
Did Geno Smith end his too, or no?
I don't think so. I have to look it up, but I don't think that was
Tavares
the case.
Jackson, I believe, was the quarterback there, which we all want to forget, even though I can't. So
I want to move on to odds to win the divisions here with the NFC teams. If you look at 3 of the divisions, the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and the Packers all have above 50% to win their divisions. But when you go to that NFC West, Cardinals are at the top with 47, Rams at 29%, Seahawks all the way with 15. So guys, when you look at these percentages here, is there anyone that really stands out to you that kind of shocks you, that you see is a little bit higher, a little bit lower?
Well, yeah, in this NFL, there's half the divisions on the betting markets minus 250 or better for the leader, right? So you've seen consolidation. We talked about that last week. And then for other halves, it's completely jumbled. I think Cardinals at, right now, I think are maybe a little bit overvalued by simulation. So with that, you look at, the Niners, we just don't know what that quarterback change is going to be. You could see them sort of emerging from this, coming in one game against Arizona, then the bye. We could see a real flip there. So I do think it's the Cardinals are probably given a little bit too much of the benefit of the doubt, but they do have a win on the road against the Rams. So if they were to be tied, they have that sort of feather in their cap there.
I was going to say, if the Cardinals are a little too high in that division, where would you reallocate that percent? You to the Niners?
Niners or maybe the Rams. I think the Rams do look stronger than maybe the numbers suggest. Stafford has not looked all that good-ish, and plus we're starting to see the Stafford injuries that seem to always pile up. That defense has not really had injuries, and it's a defense that will topple if you have an injury or two to a key position. But they are a strong side. I mean, you saw all night on Thursday wide open wide receivers, and you win in the NFL when you can get receivers open.
I want to bump over to the AFC and talk about those teams because we've got another graphic that shows all of the percentages to win the division here for the AFC. The thing that stands out to me the most, the Bills have an 88% chance to win the division. Not another team in that division has over 10%. That is dominance right there. And then the other one that stands out to me, Chiefs are still the highest, and yet here they stand as the 4th place team in the division. I know it's early, but it's just kind of funny to look at things.
The other thing that stands out is we are 4 games into the season, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a 2% chance to win their division. Yeah. Like that.
Defending champ at that division.
That is falling off a cliff pretty quickly versus last year.
With that AFC North, though, because I kind of thought the Browns were the clear-cut best team in there. With a healthy Baker Mayfield, as we've heard and as we saw last week, that's not exactly the assumption we're getting. So, Eric, are we back in on the Lamar train, or is it finally the time to get excited about our Bengals?
I think the Bengals at 16% is a fair chance. The Ravens have their issues in the passing game. The Browns, I think are the most complete team in that division. The one where you talk about Kansas City, we do have Kansas City favored. However, in the betting markets, they have the Chiefs at better than even money, minus 110. And so we're a little lower on the Chiefs than the market is, even though we do have them as a favorite. What does that mean? That means bet the Chargers to win that division, right? We're going to talk to Darius a little bit later, but I think the Chargers are a good bet. If you can get them at something like 3 or 4 to 1, go ahead and do it. Even the Raiders here, after a loss to the Chargers, I also think they have a shot at 3-1 with a good quarterback, as Ian will tell you. And a defense that's improving by the variance in that division, because I still think the betting markets are giving way too much respect for the Chiefs.
What's a better division? AFC North. I'm going to ask it. AFC North or AFC West? What's a better division?
I thought you were going to go with both the West divisions. I think the interesting thing about all 3 of those is because everybody except the Steelers is a pretty good team, they can quickly, just by beating the teams in your division, you can be the team that sort of takes control.
Do you think the Bengals are a good team?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're okay defensively.
A really high pitch there.
Yeah.
I don't know why that happened.
I mean, those are always the best, agrees.
I feel like that team, I think the Bengals, the hard part is you look at their late season schedule, it's really hard, right?
Sure.
They start with Green Bay. I don't know if they get to 8 or 9 wins. And whereas I see the Ravens and the Browns sort of slugging it out. But if they could steal a game or two from the Browns and the Ravens, they're certainly in that position. I think they're encouraging. I think we're mistaking, in some cases, encouraging for good.
Sure.
Where the Bengals haven't been encouraging for 5 years.
I don't think they're a contender or anything like that, but I think they're a difficult team to beat and a team that could easily take a game or two from any of the teams in that division and sort of propel themselves maybe artificially high to a 500 or better record.
I believe the last team with a losing record to win their division and then win a playoff game was the Beastquake Seahawks squad. Maybe someone out of this AFC South will be able to replicate that, because for the life of me, I can't find a worse division on here. Yeah. And it wouldn't 8-9 like first place record always surprise us out of there?
No, I mean, I think Tennessee is so bad. Like, Tennessee is the worst leading, and they're minus 260, or they're a really heavy favorite to win this division on the betting markets, and they're not a good team.
We're taking a quick look at our PFF power rankings here, and we got the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Bills, the Ravens. Those are the top 4 teams there. Interestingly enough, took a look at ESPN's power rankings earlier this week. Didn't even have the Chiefs in the top 10.
Yeah, which is absurd.
Didn't even have the Chiefs in the top 10. Teams? Look, I know, I get it. Yeah. We're tired of the Chiefs. We want something new, but
how many teams would be favored against the Chiefs on a neutral field?
Most teams' power rankings are just a slight tinkering of the standings in the NFL.
Yeah. And who beat whom, right? If there's a tie, who beat
all
whom?
Politics.
Yeah, but who? So who would be favored against Kansas City on a neutral field? Because we talk about the Chargers.
Tampa?
Yeah, Tampa would be.
If they're healthy.
If they're healthy.
Okay, that's fair.
We talk about the Chargers. The Chargers, when they went into Arrowhead, were 7-point underdogs, right? The Ravens were, I think, 3.5, 4-point underdogs at home to the Ravens. The Browns were 6-point underdogs week 1 against the Chiefs. And how much has that really changed? I mean, the Chiefs are still who we thought they were. Mm-hmm. Defense isn't very good. Offense is leading the league in percentage drives to score a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes is probably going to win the MVPs. He is one of the favorites right now. And people leaving them out of their top 10 are high. I don't have any idea what they're doing.
Nobody is beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs are beating the Chiefs
right.
Twice, right? But
if you give me Chiefs basically as a pick 'em against any of these teams in the top 10, I'm selling my car and I'm betting on it. It's I don't get it.
We're gonna dive deep into the Chiefs. We're gonna get more into that because they got a big game that's coming up this week that we're gonna get to talk about. Before we get to all that, got to tell the people about our friends over at Western and Southern. We're getting all of your fantasy lineups, all your bets ready, but when it comes to your financial game plan, Western and Southern has you, and they're gonna make sure that you are rest assured on game day. You're buying a house, you're starting a family, you just want to see your money grow, whatever it is, Western and Southern has the retirement, investment solutions, and life insurance strategies to get you where you need to go. Hit them up today, team up with them. They'll help you establish exactly what your goals are, the goals that are best for you, and how to get them over at westernsouthern.com/PFF.
Can I suggest a new segment on the fly of this show?
What is it?
I would like to see a things Eric would sell to make this bet.
That would actually be a great segment for the show. We could that could go at anything. One week he might be like, I don't even have a boat, right. But if I did, this is the boat area. If you have a boat out there, sell it, put it on the Chiefs.
If you don't, sell a friend's boat. It doesn't matter. Sell a boat. Anybody's boat.
Well, it means more if you're selling your friend's boat, because it's not only your ass.
You think that means more? I think that means less.
I'll
sell your boat tomorrow. I don't care what the bet is.
It's getting off the rails already. San Francisco 49ers, Arizona Cardinals. We're starting off with a divisional matchup here. Ian, man, it just feels like the Cardinals have so many things going right for that offense. But if we went into the season and we said, hey, the Cardinals are going to be the only undefeated team here at this point, you'd probably tell me that DeAndre Hopkins is on an MVP pace, that they're just force-feeding DeAndre Hopkins. But it's proven to be a lot more than just him, right?
Not quite the case. And they're the only team in the NFL with at least 30 points in every single game this year. So it's all working out. And these are the types of things where I'll go on Twitter and I'll bring up the volume concerns, and then the real life fans come and see my stupid fantasy page and they're saying, we're 4-0. Who cares how many targets DeAndre Hopkins has? So I get it. But we have 6 guys between 16 and 25 targets on this team. Chase Edmonds, Max Williams, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, A.J. Green, and DeAndre Hopkins are all significantly involved. So that's good. We can use guys like Kirk, Rondale to an extent as these lower end flex types. But I think it's just a matter of time, guys. It's a 4-week sample after all. DeAndre Hopkins is DeAndre Hopkins. I think we do see him getting back to these double-digit blow-up games in terms of targets and what he's doing fantasy-wise sooner rather than later. I know the 49ers defense isn't a cakewalk, but the biggest difference between this unit and the one we saw, really just take over in 2019 is those cornerbacks. Hopefully Hopkins is a little bit more healthy after dealing with that rib injury.
We're going to get those final injury reports here in a couple of minutes, but Chase Edmonds, listed as questionable. Elijah Mitchell, we're expecting him to play. When it comes to the overall outcome of things, Sam, when you look at how well Arizona has been playing, how much confidence do you have that this is going to be the case moving forward, that they're going to be this good?
The really interesting thing in this game, obviously, is the 49ers, Trey Lance as the quarterback. We're going to see the first game there, and whatever Trey Lance looks like in terms of where he is as a quarterback, is he a high-level player? Is he an upgrade over Jimmy G? It's going to completely transform what that offense looks like, and in a way that might actually really help them. We're going to finally see what Kyle Shanahan has been tinkering with, in the skunk works, in the shed, building this offense for the last 10 years since he's had RG3. Now we've got Trey Lance out there. It's going to be all kinds of run game. The Arizona Cardinals run defense is the 31st graded unit in the NFL. Their run fits are all over the place. They've had guys like Zaven Collins basically just plays rundowns, and hasn't played that much because of it. The 49ers are going to force him onto the field by alignment. They're going to have him on there the whole time. It's not necessarily going to go well. We saw Kyle Shanahan last year paint a giant bullseye over Isaiah Simmons in week 1 and just go after him. Like, that might be Collins this week.
Yeah, Simmons and Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks was not even supposed to have a starting job when they drafted Zaven
Which
Collins.
was weird. Which was really weird. You go into the season, tell a guy he's not going to start. It's like, can we practice first?
And then he beats the guy out. They both have a less than 50 run grade as linebackers. Shanahan loves to sort of get two guys in one gap and then run to the other gap, which should help here. The other thing that's, I think, nice is, as Sam said, the Niners right now, 0 big-time throws, 8 turnover-worthy plays. Now, one of those 8 is Lance's, but, it can only get better in the passing game here. Mm-hmm. Like, their targets are all consolidated. We said 70 between Kittle and Samuel. Now, Kittle's out, but, like, you'd imagine Lance would be able to distribute those targets a little bit. I think when you look at this game, preseason, this thing was a pick-em, right? So people had Niners better than Arizona on neutral field. Last week at this time it was 2.5. After what happened last week, it opened 5.5. We've seen it sort of sharp people betting into this. It's gotten down to 4. It's sort of oscillated between those. Not that much changes, right? To 2.5 points in the betting market here. So you're getting a lot of overreaction. You're selling Arizona at the very top here, and you're buying San Francisco at a trough. So go ahead. I think San Francisco is a good bet today.
I know we got some action in the YouTube chat. Kendall, what do you have for us?
We do. And everyone, please leave any questions that you have. We're going to try and get to as many as we can today and throw them to these guys. So the question is, with the 49ers making limited adjustments to their offensive scheme and Trey Lance getting his first start today, is Lance walking into the best situation out of all first-round rookie quarterbacks? AKA, is he going to end up being the best out of the 5?
Well, I think that, kind of like going back to what Sam said right off the bat, you look at this Arizona Cardinals run defense, right? When you think about Trey Lance, what might be easiest for him, the run defense for the Cardinals, 39.2 grade as a team this season. You mentioned it. It was the second worst. I feel like that's got to lean into that being the case. Right?
Yeah, that was my preseason take, is that whoever the 49ers drafted at number 3 was going to win Rookie of the Year because it's the best situation to step into. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, Lance didn't end up winning the job. And even in the first couple of weeks of the season, my question was, how many games does he need to start to still be able to win Rookie of the Year? If he gets 12 starts, is that still enough? I think it is a great situation. They're going to pull a lot of things out in terms of tricks and interesting looks and difficult things to defend that rely on his ability as a runner to succeed. And the Cardinals, I think, are a great team to start that off against. Now, whether it holds against better teams, better defenses, more fundamentally sound defenses against the run is more of a question, I think.
Now, I know we have another start-sit question as well. What do you got, Kendall?
We do. Ian, this one obviously directed a little bit more at you. Is there any concern on D-Hop retaining elite wide receiver status, or is he more of a wide receiver 2 now that Arizona is spreading the ball around?
Oh, okay. If you have DeAndre Hopkins on your team and you decide to bench him, I will take that as a personal insult. It's still Hopkins, people, he's had a rib injury he's playing through. He's had to go up against Jalen Ramsey in a matchup that obviously wasn't favoring him. You know, as much as Cliff Kingsbury has made the corpse of A.J. Green, who has played a little bit better, but he's made him a thing more than ever this year. Again, this is still Kyler's number one guy, and he's still got 3 touchdowns, I believe, through 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, last season, Arizona was a top 5 team in EPA per play in the first 11 weeks of the year. Last 5 or 6 weeks of the year, they were bottom 5. This year now, they're one of the top 3 teams, I believe now. Do you think that they're just holding on to D-Hop for the time when everybody sort of looks for their left hand? Because last year it seemed like they were going to Hopkins, and they were going to Hopkins, they were going with the Murray runs. This year it's like 2 less Murray runs a game. It's 18% target share as opposed to 29% target share. And it's like when the league tries to start catching up to Cliff this year, he's going to have those in his bag. And I feel like that's the exact opposite as it was last year, where in the first half of the year he was trying to show everybody how great they were, and they didn't have a second hand once the NFL caught up to him. Maybe they're holding that back a little bit. So maybe patience with Hopkins in DFS, in props, and stuff like that is maybe warranted.
We just saw this with the Rams. Everyone and their mother was losing their minds about Robert Woods. And what happened? The defense overadjusted Cooper Kupp, and then the other start comes back. So not worried about Hopkins, long story short.
I think it's kind of a best, like, you hope that that's the best case scenario with it, but it's not far-fetched. You know, this day could very well play out like that, especially with how they're setting it up. Do you have an eager to bet on this one? Like, are you eager to bet this game?
Yeah, I have Ross Dwelly over 15.5 receiving yards. You're almost to minus 120, but I'll still take it. I mean, that's just like a throw or two.
So you'd sell your TV, or?
I'd sell my TV for that.
How eager on a ship to TV?
Yeah, so
this is great. You started something good here.
It's short of a yacht, but it's certainly TV worthy.
Yeah, for those of you who have a yacht out there, obviously watching the show on your iPads, don't bet the yacht on
Hi,
this.
Chris.
We've got Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Chargers. This is a big game. This is a big game in the AFC, right? Because Cleveland Browns obviously have Super Bowl aspirations. We expected a nice year from Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. It's even better than we thought, it seems. And so this all of a sudden becomes a titanic matchup in this conference. And so, Sam, is there like an X factor in this matchup, maybe beyond the 2 quarterbacks that you see playing a big role in this one?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how the Chargers handle Myles Garrett, right? He has been on an absolute tear the past couple of weeks, dominated the Chicago Bears offensive line, dominated the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. He's been on a defensive player of the year kind of tear and determining the outcome of those games. Like, people can't block him. Now, what do the Chargers do? Because Myles Garrett spends 81% of his time lined up over the left tackle, rushing against that guy. And they have Rashawn Slater, their number 1 draft pick, who's been fantastic. That guy has allowed 6 total pressures so far, has looked like a top 5 left tackle in the NFL right out of the gate. If they spend the entire game one-on-one, that's just an incredible one-on-one matchup to watch, even if it's, in the trenches where a lot of people don't want to spend their time. But if the Browns move Myles Garrett to the other side, that's where Storm Norton plays. And Storm Norton has a pass blocking grade of 29 right now, which is, catastrophic.
Right.
Now, it's off the radar.
How far are we away from elite? Like, that's
a long way.
Okay,
long way from elite.
I just wanted to make sure.
Like, the Chargers have done a reasonable job of giving him help. You go back to the Monday night game, they were having a 6th offensive lineman on the field and almost having 2 right tackles to try and take away 1 guy. But that's that
their grades added
up
to 59, so that's how it worked out.
They've got another O lineman lined up as a wing, literally a step behind him if he gets beat.
But that kind of thing has knock-on effects. That's what Myles Garrett can do in terms of screwing up your game plan if you move him around.
Yeah, Myles Garrett is definitely that kind of player. And for this game, it seems like Chargers have an extremely high EPA per play when they're passing the ball. Browns have an extremely high EPA per play when they're running the ball. And then on the flip side, the Chargers haven't been that great at defending the run. The Browns haven't been. They've been fine. They've been a little bit better than average when it comes to defending the pass. But it seems like both of these teams have the ability to do what they want to do against these teams, and it's almost like which script is just going to dominate itself. And I know that, Ian, you're big on both the running backs that Cleveland has, and that's why they're scoring so many points when they can rush the football.
I guess my question is, because you're right, all the Chargers run D numbers are bad, but I think it's because they're okay with them being bad. They want to devote resources to stopping the pass. And if you just look at rush attempts faced with at least 8 defenders in the box this year, only the Broncos have done that less. So the Chargers are basically saying, hey, you want to run the ball? Go ahead. But now when you're facing Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who both, by any metric you want to look at, have been top 10 running backs this year and throughout pretty much their entire careers, do we see a change in strategy? He was talking about all the responsibility that Derwin James has on a play-by-play basis, setting the defense, playing 5 positions, and all this. All of a sudden, now that the goal is to stop the run, not the pass, do we see that change?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think like having, they just simply can't have the 6-man in the box thing, right? And without Murray at linebacker, it's going to be just a little bit of a change-up for them. That's why I think the over in this game is a pretty good bet. You're getting a total under 50 with 2 good offenses, as you said. Baker Mayfield, I think you're also buying him low on this total as well, where they were bad last week with 14 points. They were bad, roughly against Chicago. Everybody talks about Chicago's offense in that game, but they weren't explosive either. You're getting a good price with Cleveland and and LAC here on the over 46.5, 47 is to me a good bet.
Justin Herbert's been fantastic this season. I mean, is it to the point where we're saying to ourselves, okay, like he's got to regress at this point, or is this the new Justin Herbert? Like, is this a norm?
I want to see Lombardi consistently for a whole season, right? Because this is the first time he's been an OC for a long time. Obviously, Herbert has played a lot better when clean this year than last year, so that is obviously showing progression. They haven't had really injuries at the receiver position, which has always sort of given the Chargers fits. But so far, so good. I mean, there's really no knock on Herbert right now.
And by the way, the Chargers have done a great job of making sure that he's clean a lot more than last year. So they've moved the line as well, and Herbert's gotten better at that. So everybody involved, I think, has done a fantastic job of maximizing year 2 Herbert.
How worried are we about the Mayfield injury? It's the non-throwing shoulder, but like it's an injury.
It sure had us cursing up a storm watching him miss OBJ not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Awful.
Last week. Yeah, it's horrendous. Like to me, looking at the AFC North before, we were talking about some divisions. I thought the Browns had the best overall roster in this division, but all of a sudden you take away the potential to have at his best a top 12-ish quarterback, I think we could say. Yeah, that's really problematic. So, especially, man, fantasy, like OBJ is someone that I was so ready to just get back to anointing as a top 15, top 16 weekly guy. But with Baker throwing this way, it's not only the efficiency, but then, again, against a Chargers defense that lets you run, how many pass attempts is he even going to have this week? We're going to see potentially that Kirk Cousins inspires Stefanski game where you look up and he has 15 throws in the fourth quarter.
It'll be interesting to see, though, if the Chargers want to test him, right?
Exactly.
Like normally you'd sacrifice the run because you don't want a quarterback throwing, but with Baker throwing the way he is right now, maybe you want Baker putting the ball in the air.
You wonder if this is going to be a big game for the tight ends like Hooper and guys like that who are going to get those traditional play action passes, right? Because if the Chargers are a team that's always playing 5, 6 defensive backs, 6 in the box, and then they transition more into an even front with 3 linebackers, they're probably going to be worse at covering those type of traditional play action passes than a team that runs more base defense because they just don't do it very much.
This is the game where not having Jarvis Landry really hurts because they don't have that kind of underneath. Kareem Hunt if they want to use him that way, but we just don't see a ton of targets.
No, that's a really good point. Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys. This one is in Dallas, and Dallas, I believe, is favored by more than a touchdown. I think it's at 7.5 is the last line that I saw. Before we get into it, though, Kendall, I know you got some updates on the players who are going to be available in this game. What do you got?
Yeah, so Schefter tweeted this out earlier this morning, but he said the Cowboys will be at full strength today against the Giants with Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and Randy Gregory all expected to play today. So then the question then to Ian becomes, I need to start 2 out of these 4, Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Emmanuel Sanders.
That's a nice freaking league you got there. Must be 4 or 5 total guys in there. Yeah, so I'd be going with Amari Cooper and A.J. Brown. These are just 2 guys that should be ranked in the top 16 more places or not. We saw a great week from Devontae in week 4 going on, but AJB against this Jaguars team and Amari Cooper, even if he does catch the James Bradbury shadow, I do think this could finally be the Cowboys matchup where we get that pass volume up again, guys, because that has been the concern in fantasy land. We had the Buccaneers shootout in week 1, but these last 3 weeks, Dak Prescott hasn't even reached 30 pass attempts in a game. So really, when we all ranked Dak as this top 5 fantasy quarterback, it was based on the assumption that they were going to throw the hell out of the ball and the defense was going to be bad enough to not be able to stop anyone. And that hasn't really been the way it's played out so far.
I always love when fantasy guys get asked questions about who to start or sit, and they're just like, must be nice playing a 4-man league, and it's just questions that they never really have to think about.
I will say.
You would fit? No, okay, it couldn't be. So, this Dallas Cowboys team, heard Kendall, they're ready to go, fully healthy. Sam, what does this mean for the Giants' offensive line getting to go up against that Dallas Cowboys defensive line?
Yeah, it's a big test for Andrew Thomas. Randy Gregory, I think, is a difficult type of player to block. Fast, he's got explosion, so it's going to be a test for how good he is. But his development, that entire offensive line's development, I think has been a really huge kind of progression for this Giants offense. This week has been all about like, ooh, maybe Daniel Jones is good. Like that's been the talk everywhere. Like it's time to give Daniel Jones a little bit of respect. Mm-hmm. But the reason we're saying that is because the line is suddenly not a catastrophic problem undermining everything he's doing. This season, that offensive line is ranked 20th using PFF grades. Now, obviously that isn't good, but neither is it amongst the worst offensive lines in the NFL where it's just not workable. If you cut down the sample size even further, I know that's good, Eric, right? Smaller the sample size, the better.
Always good.
Let's make it 2 games instead of 4. You make it 2 games, they're 10.
Even better.
Right? It's trending in the right direction. Daniel Jones is loving life right now because his offensive line has been pretty good. If it continues at that kind of level, even if it doesn't keep going up, right? Even if it's just that 20th number, like that's life-changing for him.
I have to say this. I think Jason Garrett was one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league in week 1. And I think he's merely 20th now. Like I think he's actually like they're running some play action stuff.
Nice
they're doing some things that make life easier on Jones, and good for him. I think it might not be enough because I do think Kellen Moore on the other side is doing fantastic things for Dallas. Yeah. I also think Dan Quinn is doing a good job as a defensive coordinator, so it might not be enough in this game. But they are giving Daniel Jones more of a chance. They're giving the offensive line more of a chance, which I think bodes well for the Giants moving forward. Now, the Giants have an extremely tough schedule moving forward, so I don't know if that's going to make a difference for them, but at least they're going to learn something about Daniel Jones that they haven't the last 2 years, tying a hand or two behind his back.
Get some claps to the clapper, you know?
Yeah, Daniel Jones, second highest quarterback grade in our system right now. Oh. Yeah. 88. Right behind Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady and then Daniel Jones. And also,
just as we all foretold.
Of course, yeah. I also want to shout out Andrew Thomas because Andrew Thomas obviously was offensive tackle. He was the first offensive tackle drafted in a draft class that there were a lot of really good players. Did not have a good rookie season last year. Ended up grading in the low 60s for us. Last 2 games, small sample size. We got high 80s, low 80s and high 70s for Andrew
Didn't
Thomas.
have a good preseason either. It was literally as soon as the regular season started.
Worried
He's a gamer.
When he did not.
Not a good practice player. He just needs the bright lights. New York.
When
made the right pick.
When the lights are brightest, that's when he shows up. Ian, any other fantasy tidbits before we move on from this one? Anything on the Giants side of things? I mean, you mentioned Dallas wide receivers a little bit.
Well, we're talking about Danny Dimes, having the second highest PFF passing grade. How about Danny Vick, the NFL's third leading rusher among these quarterbacks? And this is not this new phenomenon. It's like people hold that trip he had against the Eagles last year against them. How many quarterbacks?
Well, it did cost him a chance in the division, so I do think that was probably why.
It's a fair criticism.
If he doesn't fall over and they have to settle for a field goal, like Taylor Heineke never happens. So,
okay, Eric. With that said. How many quarterbacks are in a position to trip after running 60 yards down the field?
Let's
hang a banner for Daniel Jones. Was in position to screw his team out of a division title by tripping over
I'm done with this game. Let's get it going.
Bears Raiders is the next game we're talking about. Hopefully there's not going to be a quarterback to trip over in this one, although this is great entertainment, so maybe we actually want that.
Derek Carr would be the quarterback to trip over his own feet on the way to the end zone.
Carr catching strays.
Well, he would fumble it out of the back of the end zone. That's his famous thing.
Eric, where is the big differentiating factor here with this one? I mean, these are 2 teams that we've talked about a lot here early in the season, I think for opposite reasons. And we were complaining a lot, and we were getting mad, getting the torches and pitchforks out for everything that's been going on in Chicago. And then on the other side of things, Raiders have been pleasantly surprised on the field.
I think it's like the Spider-Man meme for this game, right? When you look at both teams are going to struggle on offensive line. Both teams have a good, solid defensive line. Both teams have issues in the secondary. And they have one stud receiver, Waller for the Raiders, Robinson for the Bears. And I think it's one of those where we all think of Justin Fields as having Derek Carr plus potential, but he just isn't there yet. Whereas Derek Carr is Derek Carr, right? And so if you get the play out of these guys, that's what the 5.5-point difference is the fact that Derek Carr's on one side and Justin Fields on the other. So if you're going to bet this game, the handicap is either you're going to buy into the certainty that is Derek Carr, or you're going to buy into the upside that is Justin Fields.
You said go to number 1 wide receivers, but you said Waller. You meant Hunter Renfrow, right?
Sorry, and Mooney and Renfro. I don't know if they're like the same. They're similar production. Even
I can't compare anybody to Hunter Renfro at this point, especially after that fake punt attempt where he's playing
cool
safety.
After that, no more slander. We gotta get those pictures of him looking like he weighs 150 pounds, holding the groceries or whatever. Right. We're done with that.
Yep.
He's now cool.
He's just an absolute stud. Him and DK Metcalf, same category,
you get it.
same team,
same athlete.
Sam, what is the right game plan look like for Justin Fields this week? We've had an awful game plan from his first start, and then we had a game plan that seemed like maybe they burned the tape the week before and they just had something completely different. So what are we getting this week?
I don't know how different those game plans were versus how much the competition was that much different.
Okay.
The Browns defensive line absolutely laid waste to Chicago's offensive line, and nothing that was in the game plan was going to work, right? It didn't matter what the game plan was that day. It was dead. It was dead on arrival. It wasn't functioning. Then you go against Detroit. That basically doesn't count. It's like a preseason game, right? Anything you did was going to work because it's the Detroit Lions. The Raiders' defensive front is a lot closer to the first one of those teams than the second one. Max Crosby leads the NFL in total pressures. He has 5 more than Myles Garrett, who has single-handedly been winning the Browns games over the last 2 weeks. So are you going to be able to block this guy and everybody else in the Raiders' front? Because if you're not, I don't care how many extra, little quick passes or bootlegs to nowhere you're running, it doesn't matter. They're going to be dead. So that's question one is, do they have a game plan to offset the fact that they're going to be massively overmatched in the trenches? Because if they don't, Justin Fields has no shot.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking they don't. And Carr, was not good last week, but the guy has now thrown for over 300 yards in 6 of his last 7 games, I believe, going back to last year. Last year's was a 10th ranked scoring offense by the end of the year. I think it just depends on the defense. I'm done having this discussion about Carr. Is he actually good or not after every down game? Where you said it, man. They played the Lions last week. Why are the Bears getting any sort of benefit of the doubt here? For the Raiders to be 3-1 after facing the Ravens, the Steelers, the Dolphins, and the Chargers, that's best case.
I agree. And as somebody who has a lot on the Raiders over 6.5 wins and over 7 wins, I'm happy here. And I think that the Bears are not getting that respect. That's why it is a 5.5 point game, because of exactly what you're saying. Whereas the one real disadvantage, O-line versus D-line, exists for both teams, but it's far more stark for the Bears.
Right.
Keto, I know we got some starts and stits, I think, from Twitter this time. So what do you got for us?
Yep, Twitter this time. So I need 3. Hollywood Myers, Galladay, and Damian Williams to fill 2 wide receiver and a flex. I am leaning Galladay out.
I think they are spot on. Hollywood Brown, hopefully you didn't sweat those 3 drop games. I think it was 2 drop touchdowns, however many you think the guy actually dropped. He has had at least 80 yards and or a touchdown 11 of his last 12 games. We'll take that any day of the week. And McKenny Galladay, even last week in a game with no other receivers, he had over 100 yards, only 7 targets, though. Daniel Jones just isn't someone meaning to really force feed anyone at this time. Damian Williams, consistent RB2 as long as Montgomery is out. And Jacoby Myers hasn't scored a touchdown since December 2018 against East Carolina. Maybe that changes today. He's thrown a couple along the way. He's getting fed the targets. With Mac Jones really slinging the ball around more than everyone thought. Jacoby Myers, I think this could be the week.
Okay, wow. I love it when anybody makes a bold call that hasn't happened in a while, and I always hope it hits because then they get the chance to just Wolf of Wall Street, arms out meme,
I just won't mention it if I'm wrong. So.
You know how media works. He understands it. He's a pro, people. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs. This was big, guys. I mean, this is especially for the Bills. I know there's plenty of narratives and there's things that we're going to talk about with the Kansas City Chiefs, but Buffalo's entire offseason was designed around one thing: beat Kansas City, right? This team is good enough to get back there. They're good enough to win this division. We knew that those things were the case, but it was about whenever they faced Kansas City, whether it was going to be the round before or in the AFC Championship, they knew that they're most likely going to have to go through this team. So they get to meet here in the regular season. We get a little bit of a preview. Eric, what's the big matchup points here with Buffalo and with Kansas City as you've seen it a couple of games into this season?
Yeah, it's how much you have to factor in how easy the Bills' schedule was first 4 weeks of the season. I mean, they have 3 backup quarterbacks and a guy who should be a backup in Ben Roethlisberger in their schedule so far. And as such, they lead the NFL in percentage of drives that end in no points on defense. Whereas Kansas City's defense is the exact opposite. They are first in the NFL in allowing points per drive. And so how much can you sort of adjust for that? How much do you factor in last year's prior? Because the Bills, if you take in last year's prior and how their defense is played, they're as good or better than they were last year. But if you look at the offensive side of the ball, only 2 rookie quarterbacks, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, have more turnover-worthy plays than Josh Allen. He's under 7 yards per pass attempt. He's under 64% completion. It has papered over a lot of the problems that the Bills are having offensively. And if the Chiefs can score, and they scored a more percentage of drives than any team in the NFL this year, if the Chiefs can reliably score in this game, can Josh Allen be the quarterback he was a season ago, which put them in the conversation for the AFC title?
It is wild. You look at you can make a case that statistically this is the number 1 defense against the number 32 defense.
Yeah.
And yet they're clearly much closer together than that. That is a massive product of the opposition. Like Buffalo had a cakewalk of bad offenses, bad quarterbacks that can't score. The Chiefs had the reverse. Like they faced good offenses that have put up points and done some damage to them. It isn't as bad a defense as it looks right now. Now, maybe it is worse than the last couple of years, and that might be significant in terms of how much their offense needs the defense to just be viable, just give them a drive or two. But all of a sudden, like Buffalo's defense is going to have a nightmare this game. Like they're running up against the best offense in the NFL who have only stopped scoring when they've shot themselves in the foot and turned the ball over. So like this, it's going to need Josh Allen to have an amazing game and that offense to have an incredible level. Otherwise, they're going to get wrecked by the best offense in the NFL.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like for a while, whether it's been college football or the NFL, as offenses have really just started to explode, we've kind of said, you know, for lack of, I think, more clarity on it, like defense doesn't matter, right? If you can simply score all the time on most of your drives, you're just not going to get beat because you're going to put up so many points. It feels like this year with the Chiefs, they're putting that to the test more than any other year. It's basically saying we are betting on Mahomes to simply outscore every team.
They're playing the volatility of defense. So obviously, within a game, defense matters. It's just that when I go into a game and I'm saying, okay, I have this differential in offense and this differential in defense, I'm going to buy into the offensive one because offense is more reliable. Right? Offense week to week is basically a product of who the quarterback is, who's calling plays, and to a lesser extent who the targets are. Defense is so much more about who's healthy, how is the scheme fit. You know, do styles make fights on defense? We've seen against Kansas City, the style has made the fight against the Chiefs over the last few years. And what the Chiefs are banking on is their offense can stay within that like thin band of being elite, number 1 in the NFL, and their defense can do what they did in 2019, which was after giving up 200 yards on the ground to Indy, 200 yards on the ground to Tennessee, and 200 yards on the ground to Houston. They could form up and become a middle-of-the-pack defense by season's end. That's what the hope is, and it's so much easier. We're watching the Jets-Falcons. It's so much easier to take a defense from being horrible to okay than it is to take an offense from being can't move the football to okay. And the spoils of having a great offense are way higher than having the spoils of a great defense.
We got another starter set here for Ian. Ian, we're getting Ian on this matchup. I promise we are, but it's with the fantasy angle. What do we got, Kendall?
Yeah, he's ready to go. So this question asks, Latavius Murray, Zach Moss, Mike Davis, 2 of 3 to start, could replace any one of them with Jacoby Myers at flex, pending A.J. Brown's status this week. What's your order of preference of those at RB2?
Obviously, we have Davis, who's playing this morning. So
right, he's doing his thing. Hopefully, averaging more than 1 yard per carry.
Yeah, hopefully. We don't have the game up, but hopefully that is the case.
A.J. Brown needs to be in lineups of all shapes and sizes if he is active. Out of the other guys, just Latavius versus Zach Moss, I think at this point we do need to go Latavius Murray. I'm not sure why he won that Ravens starting running back job the way he did, but we're now looking at a guy that should see 15 carries more weeks than not as a big-time favorite against the Colts on Monday Night Football. This is a sort of game script where we would expect Latavius to get his run. With Zach Moss, it's still such an even split between him and Devin Singletary where, yeah, he's been getting the touchdowns over the last few weeks. I think it's a little bit fluky. So can this Bills offense score really takes us back to the matchup as much as they have been because, I think you said turnover-worthy plays, maybe it was Sam. Like Josh Allen, 3 of these 4 weeks this year has had a PFF passing grade for the week at 16th or lower. Like he's only had the one game in week 3 where he looked like the usual world beater. against Washington football team that, as you've told us every week, doesn't have as great of a defense as we all thought they would. So it hasn't mattered in fantasy land, which, hey, Josh Allen, even in 2018 and 2019, was always a great fantasy quarterback. So he's still QB7 overall in fantasy. But like looking at this game, I see the Chiefs, -2.5, -3, whatever it is. And I think the Bills are better almost everywhere, but I still can't bring myself to bet on Allen over Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, and you're getting somebody texted me the other day and said, "Are you on the Chiefs -2.5?" And I said, I'm not quite there yet. And they're like, "You're not going to get a lower spread on the Chiefs the rest of the year." Like, so
it's true.
And I think that is the case, right? You're still getting that buy low spot with Kansas City, and if you believe that they are what everybody says they are, this is the side to bet.
This is going to be, everyone's had. Hopefully, I hope you all win every single bet you put down today. Sometimes we don't.
That's nice of you.
Get through the 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It's like, all right, I got one more chance to get it back. This is going to be so much public money for the Chiefs.
Green Bay Packers, Cincinnati Bengals is another game that I want to touch on. And Sam, I'm going to start with you and just ask, are you buying the Bengals?
Yeah. I mean,
your voice got high.
I know, right? What is that?
Yeah.
Every time I talk about the Bengals, the voice raises a couple of octaves.
Well, now we've got to keep score on those. So like does it come true when Sam just genuinely has the higher pitch voice?
Is there signal in the high pitch voice? That's what we got to start tracking. Look, the Bengals have Joe Burrow cooking on gas right now. That guy is playing absolutely fantastically. When the ball is in his hands, good things happen. And part of it is because he's throwing to this great stable of wide receivers, which is a huge boost for the Bengals against anybody, but all of a sudden Green Bay don't have anybody that can cover them, right? Jair Alexander gets himself hurt tackling Najee Harris on the ridiculous 4th and whatever latest pass attempt to try and pick up 4th down.
You truly hate to see
Ben's
every angle.
Horribleness is now having collateral damage, which is just like he was harmlessly bad at
first. How many times have we brought up Ben? I don't even think we talked about it.
It's like the theme of the show.
Roethlisberger somehow impacting NFC champion or NFC.
Welcome to the PFF Live Please Bench Ben Roethlisberger tribute hour. Like that's basically what it is here.
So now you've got Eric Stokes, who I think has actually played reasonably well. He's getting a bit unlucky in a couple of plays, and that's hurt his PFF grade, but he'll do a reasonable job against somebody. But after that, like, what is your plan? Because you can't just take away one guy in this Cincinnati offense anymore. There is a huge depth to the receivers they can go to, and with Joe Mixon banged up, they're probably going to put the ball in Burrow's hands more than they have before, which is only good for them.
And I know, Kendall, you have an update for us with Mixon, correct?
Yeah, it's a good one too, because he didn't practice this week, but he did work out on Saturday, and he is expected to play today. Not 100% per Adam Schefter, but he is expected to play.
Good for whom?
We got
that last part, a little important.
We got the eyebrow rub from Ian over here while he was saying that.
Have you ever seen... nothing makes the air go out of Paul Brown Stadium over there more than a Joe Mixon run on first down.
You got to establish the run, Eric. You have to establish the run.
All right. Well, I was going to say Boyd over 5.5 catches plus 115 was my prop for this game. I'm still doing it. I'm not selling my neighbor's house to bet it, though. So,
but the fact that they're going to have him on some kind of pitch count is good, right? They're the third most run-heavy team in the NFL. If that
pitch count is greater than 0, I'm still not that happy.
But I think they're going to be forced into passing the ball more, which can only be good. Like Burrow to Jamar Chase alone is generating a passer rating of like 148. Yeah. Just let Burrow cook.
I hope so. They were down 14 at halftime last week. Burrow finished with 32 pass attempts. Like, that's still not much. And I mean, when we were talking earlier this week about, what we could talk about in this matchup show, guys, it would be that they'd throw the ball more without Mixon, but with him in there, it's just problematic. And in Fantasyland, you probably don't probably don't have a better option than Joe Mixon. So unfortunately,
I have to redo my whole showdown. I had Samaje Perine in there, and now it's all blown
with
up.
Mixon and Dalvin Cook and even Antonio Gibson, these guys that we know they're at less than 100%. Like, we just got to play him pretty much anyway, because you can't trust that Mixon is going to be on that severe of a pitch.
Do you think, though,
he's going to be active?
Why would you play him, though? Because, it's not going to be that good. Like, he's not, Joe Mixon.
Bad.
Like, it's just compared to who else you're going to have.
Yeah, why would you play him? I mean, why?
Yeah, find the mark in your league and trade him Joe Mixon.
If it's close, then yes, please play the other guy, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to note this as well when Sam was talking about how Green Bay doesn't exactly have the corners after Jair Alexander. Not a single corner above a 60 grade. So it's not even like they're just not playing well. Like it's rough for the Green Bay Packers, and they're going up against a pretty diverse group here. Kendall, what's our starter sit question for this one?
Yeah, so the question for this one is, what kind of running back tier could I target in a trade when trading away Jamar Chase?
Ooh.
I have good wide receiver depth and no running back depth behind my 2 starters.
It's going to be hard to get a full-on workhorse for just Jamar Chase because I think people do see through the volume a little bit. Someone that Antonio Gibson, especially Jonathan Taylor range, I think could work. He's had a little bit of a rough start to the year. Marlon Mack's been a little more involved than we would have thought. Is that because they're trying to dangle him out there for a trade, or maybe just Taylor being a little bit banged up in his own right? So, yeah, Jamar Chase has been fantastic, but it just goes back to that pass volume issue, and he's also been having a lot of these big games with T. Higgins sideline. So, unfortunately, only one ball to go around, and unfortunately, they tend to give it to Joe Mixon a lot more than we prefer.
And look, the bubble screen to CJ Uzomah, too. Like, anything to get the ball out of Boyd and Chase's hands.
Are we getting an Auden Tate touchdown against a bad secondary?
Don't even go. Don't slander Auden Tate.
I'm not slandering Auden Tate. No, I was big on Auden Tate when he was coming out in the draft because I was like, this guy's actually good. He was just a contested catch guy out of Florida State, but I was like, feed him. And so
people say that like it's a negative, like, oh, he can only make these incredible highlight catches over another professional defensive back up in his grill. Sorry, you want me to apologize for that, Eric? I won't.
Well, I mean, Eric can, so you're talking to the wrong guy. He's over here like, yeah, it's nothing for me.
So new segment next week as well. Like now we have to see how mad we can get each person.
Well, if Joe Mixon breaks Corey Dillon's rushing record for the Bengals this week,
you're not even going to make it to next show at that point.
Yeah, we might. I might die. Yeah.
What's your? Did you have a go-to bet on this one?
I like Tyler Boyd over 5.5 catches plus 115 for the very same reason. You have the bad secondary for the Packers. You have their 3-point underdogs. The betting markets have loved the Bengals in this one. Drove it down to 3. You can get a cheap Green Bay Packers -3 bet if you want to. But I think that this game will play as such that they have to throw the ball. And like as much as he likes Chase, I think Burrow likes Tyler Boyd when he's in trouble. And that I think will happen 6 or more times today.
All right, we got our good friend Darius Butler on the line here, and we're going to get to more hot takes. We're going to revisit the Dare I Say segments that we had before the season and give some new Dare I Say takes a quarter of the way through. But before we get to that, got to talk to the good people about our friends over at Pristine Auction. This is your go-to spot for autographed sports memorabilia. It's all auction style. So if you're looking for a specific team, a specific player, whatever it is, and you find it, it's bidding that could start out at $1. So you could get some serious steals for great autographed sports memorabilia. Sometimes just, starting as low as $1, $5, things like that. If you use the promo code PFF, you're going to get $10 off whatever the first item is that you win. Not just the first item that you bid on. It'll stay, it'll be banked up until the first item that you win. Go check it out. This is your go-to spot for signed sports memorabilia over at pristineauction.com. All right, now it's time to bring in everybody's favorite DB. I say that every week, but it is. It's Darius Butler. He's joining us here on the show. Darius, how you doing this morning, my man?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Obviously previewed a lot of really great games that we got going on this weekend. And look, what we wanted to do with you this week is we want to get your best bets. We want to hear what your thoughts are on some of the previews for this games. But we also really wanted to do another Dare I Say segment because that was a lot of fun. We put out a lot of hot takes that we're now going to revisit here because we did it in week 1. We're doing it here in week 4. And here, I wanted to show you, just to give everybody a refresher, these were our hot Dare I Say takes before the season.
Dare I say, Mr. Butler, the Jets will be a very competitive team in the AFC this year.
They won't be competitive in their own division.
The Washington football team are going to cruise to the NFC East.
What kind of language can I use in this show?
I don't think Green Bay wins a single playoff game this year.
Darius asked if he could cuss because of what my bold prediction was. And unlike Sam, I'm not going to hide behind the Thursday night game. I made this before the Thursday night game, and I'm sticking to it. Ezekiel Elliott, 20-plus touchdowns.
All right, so I don't know about you guys, but I'm still feeling okay about my Packers maybe not win a playoff game, dare I say. So I'm kind of get a little bit lucky here.
Yeah, you're feeling good. I'm not.
Not good. What do you mean, Sam? Washington's 2-2. They've won 2 games.
Yeah, but Dallas is good and Washington's not.
Are you going to use the quarterback excuse? You have that card if you want to play it.
It's true.
This is a sign of a good analyst, is being able to just use whatever excuse you possibly can out of the back pocket.
The downside of that is that Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke are basically the same person before and after shaving.
Darius, I know you were not, you weren't as keen on this Washington cruising to the division early in the season. Not looking so good here 4 weeks in.
No, I had Dallas. Dallas is the best team in that division. Obviously, best quarterback and the defense. I didn't expect the defense to be anywhere near this good, and leading the league in turnovers. Dan Quinn's got those guys flying around, so I think they'll cruise to winning that division. I don't even know that the Washington football team will finish second. Honestly, Phillies can still turn things around, and even Daniel Jones, he's coming off his best game as a pro. Maybe he can keep improving. So. Definitely don't like that Washington one. Even though I am a fan of Heineke, I don't think they lost much when they lost Fitzpatrick.
Hey, speaking of Dallas, though, 20 touchdowns? We're on the road to 20 still, Ian?
Kind of helps when Zeke can't stop scoring touchdowns with the whole thing. We're on pace for 17.
Ooh,
Did not look great. We recorded this after that Thursday night game. So I saw that brutal performance. I stayed true to my life morals and everything like that. Ezekiel Elliott, need to get a couple more today.
Also a man who stuck true to his life morals at times.
That's right. I mean, so every single time that Dallas gets within the 10-yard line, Ian is screaming to give the ball.
So do you technically get a win here if the second best running back for Dallas scores 20 touchdowns? I feel like that's like the asterisk.
Whatever you want to call him. If Ezekiel Elliott has a touchdown total that starts with the number 2, I win.
I want to ask Darius here because my next dare I say is actually tied to the one I had at the beginning of the season. Which is said, well, the Jets will be competitive in the AFC.
Wow, now, so bold of you.
I'm going to wave my hands around competitive because they did beat. They did.
Have you no shame? Have you no
Come on,
shame?
spin
They
it.
lost by one score to a
He's
3-1 Carolina
Stop
team.
it.
I don't actually see Carolina's helmet up there anymore, but they lost by one score to Carolina, who's 3-1 so far. They beat the defending and current leader of the AFC South, Tennessee Titans. I almost said Houston Oilers. And yes, they had some bad games in between, for sure. But I don't know. That feels competitive. Right now they're playing the Atlanta Falcons, who are, I think, they're like exact mirror image in the NFC. So I don't know, Darius. What do you think?
Yeah, I just don't know how you want to define this competitive, and I think it'll only get worse from here. They got a lucky win last week. Zach Wilson had by far his best game as a pro. Does it build on that? Doubt it. I think it's going to be ugly and maybe competitive in the AFC East, maybe, but nah, competitive in the AFC, not looking good. And I'm not feeling great about that Packers take either. I don't know why you are. I mean, they've rattled off 3 wins. Obviously, they started off terrible. Another big challenge today with the Bengals, but I wouldn't feel comfortable about A-Rod not winning a playoff game.
Listen, I don't love the coverage, right? We don't know if Jair Alexander's going to get season-ending surgery, and if he does, they ain't got nobody that can cover on that team.
They're almost less than a field goal favorite today in Cincinnati. And I know our hometown Bengals, have some firepower. For sure, and I think that this team matches up well with them, with Boyd and obviously Chase against a weak secondary. But historically, if you would told everybody at the beginning of the season, Packers are going to be 3-point favorites only in Cincinnati, everybody's going to be like, they would sell their neighbor's house to bet that game.
I would usually sell my neighbor's house to bet a game. Yeah. It's my house that I'd be concerned about.
Darius, what about your take? Because your dare I say was about the Niners quarterback situation. Is it playing out the way you thought it was going to?
No, it's not. It's not. Especially in that NFC West. Kyler's obviously he's at the top of the leaderboard for MVP. Russ is kind of obviously he's not looking good now. He's banged up. I didn't anticipate that coming. He's a guy that never misses time, so that was a shocker. Matt Stafford, he had a little hiccup last week, but he bounced back this week. So no, but that could change depending on how Trey Lance looks today. Having a full game plan for him. A starting 15 out of the gate scripted for him, a complete red zone package, third down package. I'm not sure how that offense really looks with Trey Lance fully entrenched in it. So I'm holding out some hope that maybe they can turn things around. They can go on a 3-4 game run here, and then Trey Lance era will fully be upon us. But we'll see. Right now, Jimmy G obviously wasn't looking great. He got hurt like he kind of always does at this point. So, but it's a lot of hope to hold out with Trey Lance and in your pocket.
we talked about Darius being a part of big media now, and as you can see, the card out of the back pocket, I couldn't know somebody was going to get hurt. And so that's just the get out of jail free card.
That came to us hat in hand, like actually being a realist about what's happened here. So credit to Sam.
We're all still hanging on, but we've got more takes that we want to pile on here. Not sure if this is going to be a quarterly thing, but we wanted to revisit it as the season is still young and do another Dare I Say segment. So Darius, what we're going to do, same thing. We're going to give you our take. We're going to bounce it off you, and you got to tell us whether it's great, you subscribe to it, or probably the fact that we're idiots. My first one is that the Pittsburgh Steelers will finish with a top 5 draft pick come next April, which is crazy to think, right? I mean, Mike Tomlin never even finished below 500, but I'm out. I'm out on the Steelers. I'm out on what they got going on. I'm not buying what they're selling. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger has this bounce back, but I think it's bad enough to where the defense is good. I get it. They're going to be competitive. I don't think they're going to be the worst team, but I genuinely think there is a chance the Pittsburgh Steelers are picking in the top 5 of this upcoming NFL draft. Darius, what do you think?
That's not crazy. That's not crazy. I mean, it obviously sounds crazy having Mike T and a quarterback like Ben there. Top 5 though, I think that's a reach. Top 10, I can see. But top 5, I mean, you got Texans, you got Lions, Jets. I mean, it's just so many bad Jaguars. So I can't go top 5. I'd say top 10.
Jets won't pick top 5.
I was going to say top 5 means that I think I did the math. Like they're winning maybe like 3 more games the rest of the season.
But they have the hardest. They have one of the hardest schedules. If you look at the PFF, sort of betting dashboard, you can look at how difficult the schedule is. And one of the reasons we didn't like them going into the year, they had one of the hardest schedules in all of football, and it only gets harder, right? They haven't faced. I mean, Buffalo's a good game week 1, but since then it's not exactly like they've faced like the hardest. Like the Raiders are kind of a middle of the pack team. The Bengals are kind of middle of the pack team. Like dropping games like that, Packers are a decent team, but they still have a really hard schedule moving forward. They haven't even faced the Browns yet, twice. They haven't even faced the Ravens yet, twice. Right. And again, they faced the Bengals a second time here. They lost to the Bengals at home. So they're not a good team. They don't have a great slate coming up.
Is there ever going to be a matchup they have where they have the quarterback advantage at this point? Because they already said they're not.
Well, they could play UConn or UMass.
Gino's not going anywhere. They got to keep him in Seattle.
Man, that's tough.
They might have it this weekend with Gino. Gino obviously had next weekend.
Gino's
Gino obviously came in and played.
Don't be slandering Gino.
Learn from your mistakes.
He played great, but I mean, going forward, how do you project that? How do you project him out to perform going forward for the next 2 or 3 weeks? Definitely not next week. I don't think he'll play as well as he played in this past prime time on Thursday night.
All right, not crazy is what we're shooting for here. I took the L on the Washington thing. I'm going to go for the easiest one available. No Russell Wilson for any extended period of time. The Seahawks season is done. They're not making the playoffs. Even with Russell Wilson, honestly, at this point, they would be struggling in that division to get there. It's basically Russell Wilson and nobody else in that roster. He has a PFF grade above 90. They've got 2 guys with a grade above 80 and then nothing else. So no Russ, no Seahawks postseason.
I agree with you there.
Yes.
I agree with you there.
Wow, we got a full agree.
Russ carries a hell of a lot of weight on that team, and the defense. I mean, the defense is looking piss poor.
Sam's over here like Big Ben on 4th and 20 throwing a 7-yard out. What kind of take is this?
Give it to your first-round player.
Let him take it.
Yeah, that was an easy one to agree with. I appreciate that. Yeah, I see as the season goes on, everybody's kind of coming to their senses a little bit more, getting some more, sensical takes. I like it.
Russ has been carrying this team of nobodies for fucking 5 years. And you're like, he's hurt, they're done. Of course they're done. It's terrible. The only thing.
You counting out Pete Carroll? Come on now.
The only thing that could keep this team alive is if Pete Carroll, out of spite to Russell Wilson, says, hey, Shane Waldman, run all the good plays now. That would be the only way. That would be the only way the Seahawks are any good. And it would be Russell Wilson carries the burden more than any player in the entire league. Of course, Seattle might not win a game with Geno Smith. Look, other than when they had the quarterback advantage.
You take a swing and you miss on the first one. I got to get on the green now.
Okay, I get it.
He's choking up on the bat. He's hitting for contact.
I mean, this is Big Ben throwing 19 targets to Najee Harris. That's what kind of take this is.
All right, Ian, what do you got?
Let's go back to regulation tees here for this one because Patrick Mahomes is not throwing for 40, not 50, 60 touchdowns this year. Wow. We got the 17th game. We're on pace right now for 59.5. Nobody has more scores inside the 10-yard line. I feel like maybe Mahomes, he's hearing you, he's hearing others say Kyler is MVP front runner. We're already getting the LeBron, like we're just tired of voting for the guy kind of stuff going on. Chiefs come back, win the AFC West. Mahomes gets 60 touchdowns.
Chiefs had the highest rate in the NFL, despite all the turnovers in week 2 and 3. Highest rate of drives that end in points. So like, and to me, that's, and their opponents have the highest rate of drives that end in points too. So he's going to have to throw 60, which is different than some of these other teams that are more complete.
60 touchdowns. How crazy is it, Darius?
That's crazy. I don't know if I can jump on board with that. I know Mahomes is different. He's a mutant. Like you said, with the extra game, it doesn't sound crazy, and he has a defense that's going to force him to score 35 plus a game to even be in it. But 60 touchdowns. No, I can't jump on board with that. I say he does not throw 60 touchdowns, but he might get close.
I feel like as a former DB, you can't subscribe to that. Like that, I feel like that would just hurt your soul to hear somebody passing for 60 touchdowns in a year.
I mean, it doesn't sound crazy, and how this NFL is, and how these rules are, and how protected the quarterbacks and these quote unquote defenseless receivers. It definitely doesn't sound crazy. That other guy in that other division may creep up on 60 a couple of years too.
All right, what do we think, Eric? What's your take? Are the Buccaneers going to be competitive? Is this the next?
The Buccaneers are going to win the NFC South.
Wow.
No. I have that we're all going to forget about the quarterback struggles, the rookie quarterback struggles by December. We talk like I think that the Bears game against the Browns is going to be a distant memory.
Right, because Justin Fields will have been 3-4 months into surgery at that point.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Come on.
Come on, man. We're all Justin Fields fans here. Look, I think when you look at some of who does Chicago have? They have Minnesota twice, terrible secondary. They have the Packers twice, the aforementioned terrible secondary. We have they have the Lions twice, who make the Vikings look like the 0-2 Bucks, and so I think that you're gonna be fine there when you have the competition. You also the Jets, like the AFC East is just so much less good than we thought it was going to be that he'll have a chance as well. So to me, I think and Lawrence as well. Like once we Urban Meyer's going to make us forget about everything Lawrence does anyway, but his early season struggles are going to be forgotten as well. So to me, I think this is a bump in the road. It sort of resets us because we've had so many brilliant, and I know Darius is going to talk about Justin Herbert. We've had so many brilliant young quarterback performances over the last 5 years that this is really what it is to be a young quarterback in the NFL. And I think we're going to see that maturation as the season progresses.
What do you think, Darius?
That we'll forget about these guys' early struggles. I
guess you're saying that everybody will be on the right path, right?
Yeah.
We'll be back to thinking that all of these guys are kind of like franchise caliber. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. I think we'll at the end of the year say, the end of the year stats don't look great, but they looked all encouraging at the end of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll look great. I think Mac Jones will continue to look better and improve. I think Trevor Lawrence will as well. I think Zach Wilson will continue to struggle. And my football mind says Trey Lance will, but I'm hopeful just because of my preseason take that he'll look much better. I like Justin Fields. And like you spoke about his matchups in those divisions. In his division, with those DBs, it definitely looks good in the lines for him. Even starting today with the Raiders DBs. The Raiders DBs are banged up. So he should have some weapons and some big time plays with Mooney and Robinson today. But I don't know. I'm still kind of split down the middle on the rookies. I think we'll probably have 3 that look good and 2 that continue to struggle.
Which I think is better than right now, where they're all kind of struggling, right?
Right. We're all hoping.
We're going to talk. I already know what he's going to do. It's going to be week 16, and there's going to be late season struggles. And he's like, "See, we forgot about the early season ones."
Look, leave yourself out.
The vague. He's a pro. Darius, what about you? What is your dare I say for quarter of the way through the season?
I mean, as you guys know, I've been on this Justin Herbert train, man, and he's, he lost one game this year where he, in my opinion, even outplayed Dak Prescott. But every quarterback he's been on the field with this year, he's outplayed him. Derek Carr, Dak, who else they play? Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah, Mahomes.
So I think this continues. Not dare I say, in his second year, Justin Herbert wins the MVP. He wins the MVP this year. I think he goes up and beats up on Mahomes and Baker and that Browns defense today, and continues an impressive streak to start his career, his young career. And I think he continues to do that. Wins the AFC West this year and wins the MVP. Unless Mahomes.
Wow, so we got two there. We got Chargers winning the AFC West because of Justin Herbert, and then him getting rewarded for MVP.
I think they almost need to do that first one for him to get the second one.
That makes sense.
If he's going to win MVP, the Chargers as a team need to overachieve relative to what we thought, which means they have to try and take that division away from the Chiefs, or at least be right there along with them as two of the best teams in the entire NFL. And the more you watch Justin Herbert, it really isn't nuts. Like, he continues to just be so much more impressive than last year, when he was incredibly good at the sort of high variance, unsustainable things that are not supposed to repeat year after year. They're repeating, but I think the thing that really helps him out is that defense is taking big steps together as well. Like, every time you hear Brandon Staley talk, he says another smart thing, and that's only going to help that team improve.
Yeah, like Brandon Staley reads the website. Like, he gets it. Like
PFF Staley. Yeah.
Brandon Staley, I think the issue with them, they do lose Kenneth Murray, the middle linebacker, is an important player for them. Can they stay healthy? I know they already lost Bulaga. They're a little bit, Mike Williams has played well. They're a little thin at wide receiver and tight end. But Herbert has been as advertised. My goodness, the game against the Raiders, he did everything you want a quarterback to do. He's done the same thing against the Chiefs. And now they're 2-0 in the division, right? They have the biggest hole cards right now because they can sort of lean on the rest of the division the rest of the year and have those advantages to them.
Honestly, the only thing I've been more impressed with up to this point in the season with that team is, like you guys spoke about, Brandon Staley. Every time I hear this guy talk, it's just wow. He makes me feel even better about everything that's going on over there, because obviously he kind of is the one guy on Twitter, and I see him, and he combines all of the different worlds, the PFF and the data and the all 22 and the play. Everything he says obviously makes complete sense. So him being around a guy like Herbert and him, leading that maturity and that growth, I mean, I can't be more bullish on that team. In that quarterback.
Before we get you out of here, I know obviously you're a big bets guy. We got to talk about your dog of the day. We got the Chicago Bears traveling to the Las Vegas Raiders. We see the Raiders are favored at home, but you like Chicago in this one?
I like Chicago, man. I like them to cover. They got 5.5. Justin Fields, his second game with Bill Lazor. Lazor showed me enough last week for me to go into this game. Because going into last week, it was hey, the game that happened before against the Browns, it was so bad, I just got to kind of act like it didn't happen. And then you saw Lazor kind of use his skill set him more up for success. And then the matchups this week. We always look at the wide receiver and the cornerback matchups. Raiders are down some of their top guys who weren't necessarily playing great anyway. So they'll be challenging that depth. And Justin Fields' ability to be able to extend plays and throw the ball down the field to his big-time receivers, I like this matchup this week. Now, David Montgomery is out, so that obviously hurts that offense. But Damian Williams is, more than a capable backup.
Yeah, playoff Damian, a capable backup, as you said. I think the only issue here, right, is the one thing about the Raiders that has been reliable about their defense is their pass rush and how stout they've been. The Bears' offensive line is not what you would call elite by any stretch. So Justin Fields is going to have to extend plays, as Darius said. Otherwise, it could look a lot like that Browns game, in Las Vegas.
I do wonder if we're just like Derek Carr. The guy has one bad game, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's back to being the Derek Carr." He's been so good this year, except for the Monday night game that we all saw. And man, Bears defense. I still remember all those Rams receivers running downfield with no one even close to them.
They've been good since then.
So yeah, I'm just saying I wouldn't judge the Raiders on the last performance we saw.
He bounced back since, and we got a little motivation too. Mac going up against his old squad. You saw what Bosa said about Derek Carr. When things like that get out, that's something that's being said in locker rooms, something being said in meeting rooms. Like, hey, if we get after this guy early, that can change the whole complexion of this game. So I expect the other side to kind of dial it up and try to make him uncomfortable early. We'll see if they'll be successful, but
Joey said
that's what they're definitely going to try to do.
He said, great player, great guy. You know, he did the all due respect.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
he made that rule.
It was a sandwich.
It was the net zero, right? It's a compliment, but, so. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, guys? I mean, obviously, we got Chiefs-Bills, massive game. We just talked about Bears-Raiders, Chargers-Browns. How do you feel about this week?
I think it's going to be a really interesting week of how teams manage injuries. I feel like this week has been over the top as far as like Patriots 8-point favorites despite having 4 offensive linemen out. We just talked about the Bears versus the Raiders. Like, I think how teams navigate injuries, this might be a week to start betting some underdogs because I think a lot of these teams are getting too many points on the point spread.
I'm just happy A.J. Brown is back in our lives. When he got that hamstring injury, I didn't know how long it could be. And when this guy is truly right, I mean, we call him like AJB, the wide receiver 1 in fantasy because we were hoping that could be his ceiling this year. Miss a couple games, we'll see. But either way, healthy, balling AJB is more fun for the game of football.
What is happening to people's hamstrings this year? Everybody's going down with a hamstring injury.
Giants are
hammies and groins.
Darius, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
You know what? It's actually a poverty AFC South game. Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm intrigued to just see how the Jaguars respond to everything that's going on with their coach. Coming off one of their better games, they led the entire game and then obviously still lost. But it's a huge distraction with their coach. Did he lose the locker room? I feel like this game, that team is going to be on one end of the spectrum or the other. Like either they're just going to completely poop to bed, or they're going to come out and galvanize and play, some of their best football this season. And I think if they go out there and it looks terrible, from the top down, Urban may be out of a job sooner than later.
Kendall, do you have any final thoughts? I'm sorry that we brought up Russell Wilson's injury so much. I kind of feel bad about that. I feel like we dunked on that a lot during the show. But you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, it's okay. I'm just a sad Seahawks fan is now a manager of Geno Smith in my 14-team league. So Ian is praying for me. It's not great.
I mean, apparently Geno Smith better than Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yeah.
Geno did look prepared, though. He looked prepared for his moment. So
he's been preparing for that game for 5 years. He should be. Good for him.
You would think so. A lot of guys don't get in there and look as good as he did. Yep. Gave him a chance.
He looked good.
All right, everybody. For Darius, for Sam, for Ian, for Eric, and for Kendall, I'm Trevor. We will see you guys again next week right here. Have a good Sunday, everybody.